Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I'm leading the Metta meditation tonight. Welcome to everybody. Is this anybody's first time here coming to Dharma Bums? Just want to welcome anybody? No? All right. We have return customers. Is this anyone's first time at a Metta meditation? Hi. Yeah. Hi, Greg. Hi. So I'll give a brief introduction to what Metta meditation is, and then I'll guide us in a guided 20-minute meditation. I like to begin by just saying that, since everyone here has been to Dharma Bums before, and hello to everyone online, I always forget that part. Hi. Or actually, the camera's up there. Hi. Dharma Bums is kind of what you might call a lay temple, right? It's led by practitioners, and at the end there's sort of like a closing paragraph where we say we're not teachers, masters, nuns, gurus. And I think that I like to say it right at the front because, I'm not coming here to lead tonight as anyone with really extensive knowledge or experience in Buddhism, but rather as a lay person, just sort of an ordinary, person here in San Diego who uses a meditation and a Buddhist practice in my life. And I have done for, 15-ish years. But, again, not an expert, just bringing the knowledge that I've accrued from coming to places like Dharma Bums and my sangha in New York for the last years. And so Metta, for those of you who are newly familiar to it, is a type of meditation that is about bringing the intention of loving kindness, which, as you know, in Buddhism is considered one of the paramitas and is also called one of the four immeasurables, meaning that these are things that can be practiced to such a degree that it grows beyond what can be measured. So loving kindness is one of them, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. I have a cheat sheet just so that you know I am indeed a layperson. I don't have this memorized. But metta is, for me, metta is something that I practice as part of a brief daily meditation because to me, metta is the bridge that connects why we sit by ourselves or in a sangha in silence, or use chants or mantras or however we might engage in our meditative practice with how we live outside these walls, outside our meditation practice. So it is the intention of bringing loving kindness to all sentient beings, as in the purpose of meditation is, from a Buddhist lens, not to achieve enlightenment for yourself, because enlightenment is this really great thing to get. It's to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings so that the world might live in harmony, essentially, so that we might live in a more harmonious environment. And then, by the way, I usually like to ask who has a sort of daily meditation practice or who is struggling to find a daily meditation practice or who, anyway, if anybody has any questions or thoughts about a daily meditation practice, please, I really like to discuss it. I think these sanghas are exactly the kind of places that we should be discussing this because it is, as I say, a lay temple. So it is the chance to be like, hey, how do you meditate every day? What kind of metta do you do every day? Or I tried this, it doesn't work for me, blah, but in a guided, so I kind of prepared a little bit about what it means to have an object of meditation and how that is distinguished from thinking. So when we meditate, there's often this idea that we let go of thoughts, that we don't attach ourselves to thoughts. I find a very good way of understanding this is to let go of your thought before you're thinking about the thought. So those of you who have been here for Jeff's intro, he sometimes says, I have a thought, hunger. I let go of the thought. Or, now that's meditation, right? That's holding a meditative practice. Or it's, I have a thought, hunger. Then I have another thought, burrito. Another thought, where should I get the burrito? Should I go to Chewy's? Should I go to, Zarape? Should I get extra salsa? I had too much cheese yesterday. Let's not have the cheese. Oh, but you could have avocado. And then, see, I'm not meditating. I'm thinking about burritos. And now probably at least a few of you are now thinking about burritos too. And so that's a very basic understanding of thought in the meditative practice. So, you can say very gently to yourself, if a thought arises, you can say thinking, or just a thought, or thank you. Some people say thank you. I sometimes have in an extended meditation sort of felt the sensation of almost like dropping a suitcase, like, oh, thought, drop it. But again, the idea is to avoid or to work through a meditative practice where you're not following the thoughts and then creating this thought chain that brings us away from meditation. Now, why did I say that? Because in this particular guided meditation, I and whoever is leading here for the Metta, I'm making suggestions about an object of meditation. So while we move through this meditation, we wish loving kindness for myself, one I love or find easy to have feelings of loving kindness for a neutral person, for a difficult person, and then ultimately for all sentient beings. And so when, to use a couple examples, when I'm doing the object of, I'm feeling loving kindness for myself, a teacher described it as you squeeze the orange and you throw away the rind and keep the juice. Or if you're a good citizen, you compost the rind. But the idea is that I think of myself, I feel the loving kindness for myself, and I participate in a meditation with this loving kindness as the object. I'm not thinking about myself thinking, well, what is lovable about myself? I was pretty good when I did that. Oh God, but I'm not that, I don't have much loving kindness for myself when I procrastinate. Yeah, I should stop procrastinating so much. Then I might be more loving. And see, then I'm thinking, or, especially some people encounter a certain amount of resistance about a difficult person. And it might become, God, that person really wronged me. They wronged me this way. Oh, wait, they wronged me that way. No, I'm trying to find, I need to find loving kindness. I loved them once. They once were really kind to me, but mostly they're just, and then again, so the idea is to have the object of the meditation, to bring it to mind. I try to avoid the word think in this meditation. If I slip, forgive me. But bring the object of the meditation to mind to instill the feeling of loving kindness, and then let that object go. Squeeze the orange, let go of the rind. And I'm trying to read different ways of looking at meditation through different lenses, because everybody is so different. Some people are very visual thinkers. They might see the person, again, it might be, I see this person. Oh, I see their smile. Oh, I see their eyes. Their eyes are full of kindness. Well, that might be your thought process, but try to have it be the object and then squeeze the orange, let go of the rind. I personally am a very oral thinker. I tend to think in words to my brain, so it becomes a little bit like, oh, this person's difficult. This person's challenging. Maybe they're bipolar. Have they ever seen a psychiatrist? And then, then I'm lost in the story. So I hope that's helpful. We're going to do a 20-minute meditation. I will guide you. I talked a little bit more about it in advance. So if that worked for people, please let me know. And if it really didn't, please let me know as well if it's like you would rather just get straight into the Metta meditation, and then we'll have some time to discuss it afterwards. But we're going to have a 20-minute meditation. I will guide you. And for those of you, again, relatively new to meditation, comfort is paramount. In this temple, we do not practice a rigid form where you can't move or can't scratch or can't sneeze. But comfort, straight spine, and again, as a tool, try, if you do find yourself thinking about thoughts, you can bring your attention to the breath. I also will say meditation can absolutely be done with open eyes. That was the way I was taught, because the way I was taught was we meditate to exist in the world, not to bring ourselves inward. Now, some people, their practice is very much about closed eyes and inward. However, I will say if you are the type of person who tends to drift or tends to fall asleep, which happens to the best meditators on earth, it's worth trying open eyes with a very gentle focus. Oftentimes these statues can serve as a focal point. A gentle focus can kind of help you feel like you're meditating in the world, and again, avoid a little bit of the mind drift and the falling asleep. Again, just a suggestion. If for you, your meditative practice is absolutely eyes closed and inward, that is 100%. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that's a judgment of good or bad. All right, so 20 minutes, and I will guide us first to get ourselves focused and on the breath, and then through the Metta practice. So taking a minute to settle into silence, focusing on the breath. And now, bringing the object of our meditation to rest on ourselves with feelings of loving kindness towards ourselves. If people find this challenging to summon feelings of loving kindness towards yourself, you can think of yourself in the third person as looking out from outside yourself with loving kindness. You could think of yourself as a child or in a vulnerable state, but knowing that we ourselves are all deserving of loving kindness. With the words, "May I have happiness and the root of all happiness." May I have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now, bringing the object to be someone whom you find easy to have feelings of loving kindness for. Someone about whom feelings of loving kindness or a sense of loving kindness feels natural and spontaneous, without effort. With the thought or the intention, may they have happiness and the root of all happiness. May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now bringing to mind, as the object of our meditation, a person or people about whom we feel relatively neutral, about whom we do not have either strong negative or positive associations. It could be someone you do not know well, someone you encounter in day-to-day life, a group of people you are aware of their existence but maybe haven't encountered them with any great meaning. And knowing that they too, as all sentient beings, are deserving of loving kindness as their birthright, with the words, "May they have happiness and the root of all happiness." May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now bringing our circle of loving kindness still further to encompass someone about whom we might have difficult feelings. You can choose for yourself how relatively challenging you wish this to be, knowing that it does not mean that you endorse or approve or even tolerate difficult or divisive people, but rather that this person or these people, as all sentient beings, are deserving of our loving kindness, that we widen our circle of loving kindness and compassion to include those about whom we might have difficult or conflicted feelings. With the words, may they have happiness and the root of all happiness. May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now widening our circle of loving kindness to encompass all sentient beings everywhere on this planet and beyond. Knowing that the purpose of meditation in the Buddhist practice is to achieve enlightenment for all sentient beings everywhere. With the words, may all beings everywhere have happiness and the root of all happiness. May all beings everywhere have happiness and the root of all happiness. Give everyone a sec to come back into the room, and we have about 20 minutes for discussion, questions, thoughts. Also, anyone online want to give any questions, comments, thoughts? Yeah.
I did my first meditation with open eyes. I felt like that I was here, like I wasn't like having so much thoughts when I'm closing eyes. But I kind of feel a little bit better when have closed eyes, because like it feels like I don't know. I feel that I'm not here. I float and then come back. It's kind of a different experience when I have eyes closed. Yeah, I just want to point this experience.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's no right or wrong way. There are many schools of meditation that practice with a closed eye or have no opinion whatsoever. I think, as I say, in my experience, I tend to find if I'm in a place where I'm more prone to drifting off, or especially to sleeping, a soft focus helps me. And as I say, the tradition I originally, sort of learned my meditation practice in, the goal or the idea was that, we meditate to exist in the world, which is, when I'm leading this particular practice about metta, I consider this very much about that. But again, there's, many, many, many people find closing eyes to be a more meditative practice, because they're not distracted by what they're looking at or, external stimulation. But I think it's always great to try both, And I will say, again, this is in my experience, on a day when you're more than certain you're going to fall asleep in meditation, it never hurts to try with slightly open eyes. That's one where I will actually say there might be a little bit of an advantage on one over the other. Yeah, Greg.
This was great. It was my first time doing this. How much is the balance between sort of visualizing these individuals versus sort of the mantra piece?
Yeah, I don't think there's a prescription, but I think, again, the idea is very much to summon the object, to cultivate. I don't think, again, it's a little hard to describe because everybody's experience is going to be so subjective. And I'm still learning how to lead this meditation. But, in some cases, it might be a feeling, as in an emotion or a physical sensation of warmth or generosity or love. Again, in other cases, other days, it might be a more intellectual or more intentional set of, I am cultivating loving kindness for the world, for a purpose. Everyone's so different, and and every meditation is different day to day. But again, I think what I was trying to drive at in the beginning, and what I was kind of trying to read up on, is the whole concept of an object of meditation is that it doesn't, as meditation is in and of itself trying to achieve a state of non-attachment, if it is in a visual sense, not, suddenly, caressing every detail with your mind's eye, or again, leading it to a place where it's thinking about the thought rather than bringing it back to the sense or the intention. I mean, as I say, I'm not a visual thinker, so I don't tend to see things. But I often will summon a feeling of that loving kindness, and particularly on that one, I think that is one where the sensations that arise are very valuable as instructors in meditation, because essentially what we're doing is we're cultivating that feeling of loving kindness, however that might accrue in you. And so when I talk about, the person that you have as that object, the reason we do it at the beginning is because it's the person that, or the pet, the people that you think about, and it just immediately fills you. Everybody has a different way to describe it. Warmth, compassion, kindness, joy, it's so different. Some people, there's some people who absolutely have to use their pet because humans give them such complicated feelings that is never going to be easy, or at least at the stage that they are in their meditation practice. Other people, it's just, it could change week to week. One meditation when I was leading here, I had the same person who summoned loving kindness was also the person I was finding very difficult. So that was very instructive. But to return to your kind of original question about how long is a piece of string? I think that the important thing is to exploring your own meditation practice, how you balance a meditative state with thinking. I had one teacher who gave, I can't even remember what the percentages were, but it was like every meditation should be a percentage of vigilance, a percentage of intention, and a percentage of conscious abiding, meaning the conscious abiding was the largest percentage. So yeah, I hope that, again, I hope that gives you maybe some ideas. A lay person talking to lay person.
And just as an aside, an interesting observation just for me, the easiest one to kind of observe and detach from difficult people.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I'm actually,
A lot of thinking without thinking.
yeah,
The others I drifted off.
yeah,
The others
yeah.
I was able to abide in it. I think surprised.
Yeah, I always forget to convey to the online audience, but this person was sharing that they found the easiest one not to fixate on or chase thoughts after was the difficult person, which I mean, it's nothing surprising me because everything can happen at any point in meditation. But again, the idea might seem initially counterintuitive because sometimes the idea of a difficult person also means that it might be the most difficult part of the meditation. And yeah, sometimes it is easy because you know what? It's sometimes the most difficult people are the people who most need love and kindness, truthfully. Really. Yeah, hi.
Hi. When I was doing the difficult part, I noticed that I was very avoidant, and I was kind of like battling myself internally, and I'm like just even saying the mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed as I just kept saying it and repeating it, like I started to let go
Mhm.
more of that feeling. So it was actually very, very helpful for me.
Yeah, this person shared that when they were on the difficult person, that they were initially avoidant and then found that the words and the intention and what we're calling the mantra helped them come to a softer place. Yeah, and again, there's no right or wrong. Initially, many people are very avoidant, and at the type of meditation and the phase that we are kind of exploring together in this sangha, we say it's open to how challenging. There are great meditators who have meditated upon war crimes and atrocities and have achieved states of loving kindness towards people who did them or their families or their communities very serious harm. That's not, I'm not saying like find the person you find most harmful in this moment. You can, I mean, if that's where your intention is, but there are many ways, and I think again using it as an object and not thinking about the person can be a really fruitful way to explore feelings of loving kindness around situations or people about whom we find difficult. I mean, I have found in my life during some periods in which I'm dealing with a contentious situation, I do a short meditation, and then I end it every day with a metta where I wish myself loving kindness, happiness in the root of all happiness. I wish my family, loved ones, happiness in the root of all happiness. I wish, and then I will, in times when I'm being contentious, I'll do the metta where I wish this person happiness in the root of all happiness. And I don't find it to be like a magical thinking. I'm not saying that like when I get together with that person later in that day in that contentious situation, it all is smooth sailing, but at least I know I'm going in with a clean slate. I'm going in with right thought. And to me, that makes all the difference in the world. And oftentimes I do hear with people who are dealing with, often it's a really bad boss. That's a classic one. Bad boss, they do metta. I wish this boss happiness in the root of all happiness. They find it just that tiny bit much easier to get through the day. Which isn't to say, again, this is not to say that you endorse the behavior, right? It's not saying I'm okay with abusive bosses or, bad harm to me. That's not, we have boundaries, we have wisdom in how we comport ourselves in the world, but it is helping all of us live, hopefully, with a little bit more of a sense of equanimity. And ideally, again, in the goal of Buddhist practice, ideally, to bring a more harmonious world. I need to look at the time. We still have 10 minutes, so if we have more questions, thoughts, yeah.
I have a comment, or more a share. I've been thinking about metaphorical speaking and open my own Pandora's boxes. And, I go inside, I found so many things, and they got activated in my life. Then I really don't know how to close it again, meaning how to resolve those things. Like in my own experience, when those things are activated, I found myself like I'm able to go back to resolution or integration, healing, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Then I used to love this person greatly,
Mhm.
and then it moves to a more hostile relationship, and then resentment, and finally to hatred.
Mhm.
And I've been doing a lot of loving kindness meditation,
Mhm.
but I haven't been able to go from myself going back to a place where I don't love this person again.
Mhm.
Not as it was before, but it just, I guess what I'm trying is to get rid of all this hostile
Mhm.
and resentment, hatred, rather than keeping them myself. But I've been trying, but I haven't been able to go back to a better place or go back to a place where I felt involved.
Mhm. So again, I always have I get these interesting, deep thoughts, and then I have to kind of paraphrase it for the computer. But this was about the idea of kind of opening the Pandora's box, and about how feelings towards people can change from positive and loving to resentful to hatred, and um, and 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 how do we come back to the feeling of loving. Now, I'll just kind of narrow it to the Buddhist perspective, which is that when we say loving kindness or intentions of loving kindness, it doesn't really matter if you love them. You may never love them again. That it just, that simply might not ever happen. And that's, from a Buddhist perspective, that's okay. Because essentially what we're doing is we're wishing all sentient beings, no matter our feelings towards them, feelings of loving kindness, equanimity, happiness, root of all happiness, so that we all might live in a harmonious world. Now, in order to live with a harmonious world, ideally not carrying feelings of resentment and hatred might help us live better in a harmonious world, right? If we're not walking around with feelings of hatred, then yes, we are going to live more equanimitably. But again, there's no mandate, there's no requirement that you forgive this person. There's no requirement that you like this person. There's no requirement that you love this person. Truthfully, there's not even really a requirement that you tolerate this person beyond tolerating all sentient beings and knowing that all sentient beings are deserving of love. I will say, on a very personal level, I deeply relate, because the person who's my third rail that I really have a challenge to try to find feelings of loving kindness is someone with whom I was incredibly close, and with whom I had a break and now no longer have contact. It was not romantic, it was professional, but still, you know, it was something that was incredibly important to me. And so I'll brush up against it and I'll think, I wish you know, especially if I've been dwelling on it. You know, I can't sleep and I think about, God damn it, you know, why did and I will often try to bring this person as my object of a difficult person for loving kindness, because I don't want to feel like that, right? I don't want to
I
feel.
agree with my point is that I don't really want to go back to a relationship, but I really want to go back to a place where I feel love.
Right.
Not necessarily close physically, but not carrying with me all this baggage.
Yeah.
That's what I do like.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so just reflecting back that this person doesn't, you know, want to necessarily have closeness with this person again, but wants to have the feelings of love. And again, that is entirely what the process is about. You know, right at this moment, you know, I am not in a deeply loving, kind state to necessarily think of the person that I have difficulty with instantaneous love. But I will commit as a practitioner of Buddhism to practice metta about this person for the rest of my life. You know, a really good example of this, just not to talk about myself too much, but is my father, with whom I had a very complicated relationship and with whom I absolutely made amends and closure and had a really good experience at his deathbed where I had no regrets and nothing was left unsaid. And so now when I can think about these difficult things and I don't feel triggered by resentment, I don't feel like remember all the terrible things my father did, and the many were very harmful. But you know, I have, as a Buddhist practitioner, and it was part of my practice when he was dying, I did the practice of Sogyal Rinpoche's at the bedside of the dying. And so, you know, because I do practice Buddhism, I have had, you know, this small knowledge of what it is to live in forgiveness and harmony with someone with whom I once had a difficult relationship. That's not everyone I've ever had a difficult relationship with at all, you know. But it has given me an appreciation when I do read practitioners like Thich Nhat Hanh who are talking about finding loving kindness towards those who have caused us serious harm, that I have some, you know, I have like a micro millimeter of understanding of that.
So you do different things with metta meditation with your dad. You said something different.
Yeah, well, it's a specific practice at the bedside of the dying. You can look it up. It's called the Buddhist practice at the bedside of the dying. Well, it just happened that I was there when he was dying. I mean, I don't think you pick anybody and do this practice. That was the circumstance. But it is a type of metta. Yes, it is about a type of metta of being kind and in particular being present with the dying. I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but you know, this is a part of my practice is looking at. I took a long Buddhist meditation course called In the Mirror of Death, and you know that was actually what led me to a different kind of Buddhist practice in my life. Sorry to go on a little tangent about that, but yeah, if it's helpful to you, look it up. I mean, I think that's what it's there for. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, someone pointed out it could be applied to a relationship. And yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to take that home with me and think about my professional fisher. Yeah, yeah.
I was just going to say, in some of the meditations I do, particularly forgiveness meditations, some of them include the words like, I forgive you as much as I am able in this moment.
Yeah.
Right? And that is real powerful for me, like realizing that I'm not necessarily going to get there today, but as much as I can right now.
Yeah. So this person said that in their practice, they use a forgiveness meditation, which is, I forgive you as much as I am able. This is just sort of a little academic. I'm going to separate that from metta only because I don't want people to think that there's a goal of forgiveness in metta. But again, everybody's practice is different. And I mean, as I say, I achieved forgiveness through a meditation practice. Forgiveness is very, very powerful. But again, I think it's very good to not feel like metta is goal oriented or if you do not have forgiveness, that you cannot use that person as metta, because that's almost the not the right, but that's an incredibly valuable thing to say. I don't forgive this person. Maybe this person did cause me or someone I love, or caused a group of people, right? We have people now who are causing big groups of people enormous harm. And we don't have to forgive that, right? We don't have to endorse that or be okay with it. But we can and should, if we're living with a Buddhist practice, try to find loving kindness, because ultimately we are not going to improve the situation without compassion for all sentient beings. There is a very powerful, and I'll end with this, there's a very powerful Thich Nhat Hanh story where he was, so those of you who don't know, Thich Nhat Hanh was a Vietnamese practitioner who it kind of gave us the idea of engaged Buddhism. And in particular, in his own life, he worked with reconciliation after we say the Vietnam War, but you have to remember there were multiple Vietnam Wars with different sides, right? So he worked in practices of reconciliation with people who had bombed each other, raped each other, attacked each other, mutilated each other, to try to achieve reconciliation and peace for a better world. And when you see, how much forgiveness and how much reconciliation he was able to achieve through this Buddhist practice, it's really, really powerful. And he also is very clear, he's not a saint. He's not, someone with mystical powers. It's this incredible discipline of practice that he engaged with over a lifetime with himself and other people. And he tells this story about, he's on a boat, and and I'm not going to go into the politics of it or anything, but it's like, I'm just going to say, for the sake of the story, like a North Vietnamese and a South Vietnamese. And so there's a North Vietnamese soldier, a South Vietnamese father and daughter, and the father realizes that this soldier has raped his daughter. And the father goes to push the soldier into the water on this boat. And Thich Nhat Hanh is trying to find the loving kindness in this moment, and he realizes that he says, I am the daughter, I am the father, I am the soldier. And that for him was how he achieved his sense of reconciliation, knowing that because we don't have a self, right? We're all one, we're all portals of, like, containers of consciousness. We therefore have no separation from these other beings. So when we are in these situations where there are people causing intense harm and intense suffering, we remember we are all sentient beings. And so, I read that because, I don't want to walk around with hatred and with anger and with resentment, because to me, that doesn't help me feel better in this situation. It doesn't help me be a better citizen. It doesn't help me be a better parent. It doesn't help me be a better meditator. So I got, again, a little bit off on a tangent, but forgiveness is very powerful, but it's very complicated. And again, not a goal of metta, but through metta, people do find forgiveness. So I'm going to end with reading the transfer of merit. And then there will be a little announcement from our host, and then I will bid you farewell. So, If you feel comfortable, you may bring your hands together at your heart center with the words, "May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering." And now Greg will give us a little announcement.
Hi, everybody. I am tonight's host, Greg. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten the seat cushions over the chairs before you head out, and if you could close any windows so they look mostly closed, that'd be great. And thank you for being here. Also, if anybody wants, there's a couple of volunteer opportunities on the bulletin board out there. So if anybody's looking for an opportunity to help out at the temple, that would be great. Thank you for being here. Wish you well.